All right, I'm going to share my screen here. Now, of course, John was just at the very exciting Tampa Sports Expo. And I'm sure you guys have seen the website here. It lists on the homepage all of these exciting athletes you'll be able to get autographs from. John Gruden's going to be there. Jose Canseco. Phil Esposito. I mean, what a list, huh? And then also confirmed, Stuttering John. No image, just in a list on here with everyone else. Now, what I found interesting about this is that they have Friday guests, Saturday guests, Sunday guests. So I clicked. I'm like, well, when was John there, I wonder? So I click on Friday guests, and you have these athletes.
Okay.
And then you also have Michael Papajohn and Stuttering John Melendez. So Friday's not a busy day.
Right.
There's just two Buccaneers and these two guys. The other thing that's interesting here is that the prices are all listed under the athletes, but for Michael Papajohn and Stuttering John, it just says autographs photos will be available for purchase directly.
Yeah. I think a lot of that has to do is they're at a sports convention and they're not fucking athletes. So people aren't bringing a Tonight Show jersey to have signed by Stuttering John.
Right. Yes. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And then I click on Saturday. Better lineup on Saturday. You got a whole bunch of athletes and people that, you would know if you were a Tampa fan, but other athletes as well. Huge list. And then, right there at the bottom, Michael Papajohn and Stuttering John Melendez. And then on Sunday, you won't believe it, the only two guys who are there all 3 days are Michael Papajohn and Stuttering John Melendez.
No wonder those two hit it off.
Yes.
Even the kid that nobody cared about from The Sandlot was only there for 1 day.
Right. Every other person is there for just the 1 day, or I'll sign some autographs and then I'll be on my way. But these two guys have nothing else going on.
And how many people thought they were meeting the guy who owns Papa John's?
I know, right?
Right. Yeah. Hey, will you say the N-word on a video with me? You're not that guy.
Believe me, he'll still say it. It's
right. So John goes on this show hosted by Peter Blake. And the first question is asked is, him being at this sports expo. And I don't know why John brings this up.
I'm sitting right next to Michael Papajohn.
Yeah, I see that.
Yeah, from The Water Boy, The Longest Yard.
Yes.
And, and a whole bunch of other stuff. But, he's a really cool guy. Kind of looks like De Niro.
He's been in a lot of movies. Yes. It's crazy. And I didn't realize it because I was doing research on it, because this is what you do when you're in the radio business. I felt like this is a radio show. It's a TV show.
Yeah.
Inspiration is from you, my friend. Inspiration is from Howard Stern. If you're a radio guy, you got to watch Private Parts. My thing is, I don't know why you didn't have more time in Private Parts.
Okay. So I don't know why John opens up with talking about Michael Papajohn. He had no story. He just goes, it kind of looks like De Niro, huh? Like, well, we all know we've seen him in tons of movies.
I don't think this guy asked a question in the first 10, 15 minutes of this interview. It was just John jumping from one story to another with no rhyme or reason. Nothing.
I get coming on a show prepared with an anecdote about what you're doing that weekend or whatever, but it has to be a story that's interesting.
Right.
He's next to this guy. He's cool.
Yeah. Oh, I was walking around Tampa. This happened. This is crazy. Has this ever happened to you? Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, I saw Joey C. wasn't even helping this guy who had his neck broken. It was crazy.
Yeah.
This city's nuts. So he's, and I also don't know why Michael Papajohn is there. He tries to connect two sports movies, I guess. Right there.
The Water Boy.
Waterboy's barely a sports movie.
I mean, it's certainly not a classic sports movie in that genre,
Oh, you like football? We got to watch Waterboy. Never been said.
Right.
And then this guy, Peter, who's all over the place at the beginning of this interview, I don't know what he's thinking. But
for most of the interview, he was in hell. You could see that on his face.
He's working hard. He works real hard. But so at the beginning of this, he goes, I don't know why you weren't more in Howard Stern's movie. You don't? Have you seen Howard Stern's movie? It takes place from Howard being a kid to Howard making a big splash in radio long before he met Stuttering John Melendez. Hence the reason why John wasn't in the movie. He wasn't part of that story.
Right. The fact that he even let him on at the credits, like he could have given him a part as a pizza delivery guy. And then this guy would be sitting here going, why did he only let you deliver a pizza in the movie?
Right. I mean, they did find a role for Gary in that movie because Gary's a professional and could do that.
That's right. They can depend on Gary.
Yes.
That's the other thing. Yeah.
Right. So this is John's response to that.
Well, that's what I complain about at the end.
I know. And I don't understand it because you're a big part of what Howard Stern did. But doing the research there, he was Papa John, the guard on The Longest Yard.
This guy, I'm telling you, all over the place. Like, I know, that's what I mean. Like, you're such a big part of the Howard Stern show. So you're talking to Michael Papa John. He played a guard in that one movie. Like,
well, and so painful for John because he was literally falling in love with this guy when he said, you don't get credit for being there and being a part of it. And then right away he changes lanes on the Papa John. And John's just heartbroken now.
Well, and they go on for a while talking about the movies that he's been in. Mm-hmm. They just start listing movies. It's a sports talk show at a sports expo, and they're talking about a character actor who's been in a bunch of movies that we might remember him from, kind of.
Well, I think the guy was a little shell-shocked, too, because the first question was like, tell us about your podcast. He's like, I'm done. I'm done doing it. The trolls,
yep. You know. So that's the first question that comes up, and this is John's response.
Yes, and he was in for the love of the game.
Yes, he was. Kevin Costner's nemesis.
Yes.
How about that?
Yeah.
Well, talk about you. Talk about what you're doing. You're doing a great podcast right now. How is that going?
I finally decided to stop streaming. It just got too toxic, you know.
What a really? Plug.
Yes, and you know, anonymous armchair warriors in their mom's basement who try and call my gigs to get them canceled, and like even here they tried to, you know, some idiot emails try to get me canceled.
Why?
It's like, it's just this is the society that we live in.
So that's very telling. So Peter's doing a show. No one tried to get Peter's show canceled.
Well, Jay, maybe that society hasn't reached Peter yet.
Yeah, it's weird. It's just like, well, I mean, that's how it is. Like, people just try to get people's shows canceled. John doesn't bring up that, like, well, I threaten people with violence all the time. I go after them. I try to dox them. I wanted to get this fine doctor in Tennessee and get his livelihood taken away because he wore a T-shirt on stage once. Like, he doesn't talk about any of these things.
Right, like when you're saying how toxic this world is, after each example of how toxic it is, you should say, which I did as well.
Right, which I did tenfold back to them. But so I like that he wants to have it both ways. He goes, they're anonymous, they're in their mom's basement, they're keyboard warriors. But then he says this.
Armchair
These people
warriors.
just hide behind an anonymous, and they come by my house and put things on my door and pour garbage on my lawn. It's like, it's just call my mother at 2:30 in the morning on Christmas morning.
I said
so I just said, you know what? I don't need the money that bad. So I'm just going to take, I'll just go back to doing stand.
I'm sorry.
Please.
I know he's going on his thing, but I said this before that John never has a co-host. He never has somebody that he does a show with. It's always like, it could be like the volleyball Wilson sitting next to him.
Yep.
Right.
And he needs somebody to just tell his sad story to. It's just a gripe. So no matter who it is, whether it's Quadfather, it's the fat guy from Long Island, Gravestone, him, this is where it goes. It goes, all of a sudden he's talking about potatoes.
Yeah, well, he has nothing else to talk about. He has nothing else to offer or bring to the table. This is his entire life. He doesn't go out and do things. He doesn't have stories. Even when he doesn't come back with stories. He doesn't turn it into material. Nothing.
It is shocking how little he talks about his time on The Tonight Show. It's crazy that he doesn't have way more stories about meeting A-list celebrities on a daily basis.
I'm telling you, they shuffled that motherfucker around back there to keep him out of everybody's goddamn way. Yep. They gave him jobs that were idiot-proof, that were probably tweaked and fixed after it left his hands and into somebody's hands that was competent and knew the fucking job.
People are saying, where's the retard? Oh, he's over there in the fourth row. He'll be back here in a few minutes. Just give him something to do.
But you know what else he doesn't have stories about? College.
Yeah, there's no college stories and no Tonight Show stories. funny how that works. But so, this guy, he's doing the best he can. This is a weird way to start off an interview. He's talking about, I had to quit podcasting because there's people hiding in their mom's basement, but then they're also coming to his house and putting garbage in his lawn and leaving notes. Like right there, I'd be like, whoa. I thought they were just like online messing with you, but now you're saying they're coming to your house. And no, that's specifically Chad Zumock and Joey C.
Well, but also knowing his
not
lifestyle.
Anonymous trolls.
But knowing his lifestyle and how he lives and how he takes care of himself, it's very, very possible that he put trash on his lawn and just doesn't fucking remember it. I mean, he does clean his cat litter on the lawn.
It was a Coors Light 12-pack empty. Of course it was John's.
Right, and it wasn't an entire trash can dumped over. It was one. It could have easily gotten blown out by the wind or something,
For sure.
So
let me just finish this clip because it's pretty funny where it goes from here.
2:30 in the morning on Christmas morning, and so I just said, you know what, I don't need the money that bad, so I'm just gonna I'll just go back to doing stand up, which is essentially what I'm doing. This is only my second convention.
Really?
And that's a weird thing too. So the two conventions John has done so far are Chillercon and the Tampa Sports Expo. One is for stars of horror movies, and the other is for athletes. Like, why was he involved in either of these?
Both of them, he had to identify himself by the shirt he had to show that he belonged based on the shirt he was wearing. Chiller, he had Jay Leno shirt.
Yep.
Here, he has the pro football arm wrestling shirt on.
Yeah, who could forget that? What an event that was.
How about everybody that came to the Sports Expo? That's who forgot about it.
I think he was with Chillercon because his life is an actual horror story.
That part is accurate,
right.
Yes.
So later on, Peter asks again about, you should just keep streaming. Who cares what they say on social media? You can keep it going.
And I get criticism too. And then you have fans that are just crazy. It's social media. Like, I love social media, and I know what you mean by doing a pot. Keep on streaming, man. You got plenty of stories to tell.
Oh yeah, I know. And I was making like over $100,000 a year doing it, but I just decided to say, you know what, this is just not worth it.
Yeah.
Just the harassment and the constant, just like, attacking family and just like taking it way too far. And it just really got way too far. Sending people to my gigs with a microphone hidden as a flower.
That's crazy.
So they could tape me.
Nuts.
To have a conversation. I mean, it's really like, it's juvenile.
Mm-hmm.
It's seriously childlike.
Right.
I love that he finishes that with it's juvenile and childlike when he started with, and I was making $100,000 doing that. Like, that's childish. That's when you have to brag about your income to this guy who's just like, all right, man, whatever. It's not what I asked at all. I just said you could continue your show.
Right.
Also, he's wrong. John doesn't have any stories. I literally could have predicted everything John said on this show. I know his stories better than he does at this point.
It's exactly what we were doing the other night. We were watching it. We were calling it before it happened.
It's so frustrating.
But there's also people who make $100,000 a year who got to put up with way worse than people teasing you and
right.
Sending you anonymous comments and whatever he thinks is bothersome for $100,000 a year, and he would never give that up if he was.
No, you know what I think it is, Zen. I think there's members of his family who gave him an ultimatum to get out of the Dabbleverse, get offline, and he's angry and bitter. That he's not making this money anymore. And so he has to constantly say, like, look at what I'm doing. I gave up $100,000 to stop doing this thing. So I sure hope you guys love me again. I sure hope I can be at your birthday this year and visit you at Harvard.
Yeah. And I also like when he goes, these people show up at my gigs to record it. Try showing up to somebody's job and trying to record them and interview them and have a discussion with them with a microphone. He cries about the shit that he's 100% guilty of, which is why he is so hateable to so many people that know him.
Also,
not you.
The $100,000 thing, I also want to point out that I think it was Clay Dabbler he was talking to, where he was looking at his back end and he was bragging about how much money he made in YouTube. But it was over a year's time.
Yes.
It was like almost 2 years' time that it finally got to $100,000. Because I remember him bragging about making $5,000 in 1 month. And everyone went, okay, but that's $60,000 a year. And then he bragged once about getting $8,000 in 1 month. And I believe he made $800,000 or $8,000 in 1 month, one time. Even that doesn't add up to six figures.
Just to go circle back to what you'd said, Clay was the one who told him how much he made.
That's right. Yeah.
That year. John didn't even know. So, yeah. And again, he's padding the stats. It was 90 grand, but while he's on the radio, it's over 100,000 now. Mm-hmm. Okay. Whatever you need, Johnny boy.
Well, you got to love John. He's always listing his credits, even if it makes no sense in the conversation. It is completely unnecessary.
Yeah, I did Chilicon, which was a lot of fun. I got to hang out with a lot of people. Like Jim J. Bullock, who was in my movie that I sold to National Lampoon.
Okay.
He was in my movie that I sold to National Lampoon. Another thing John could have said is I got to hang out with Jim J. Bullock, who was in my movie, which completely flopped, even though I promoted it on The Tonight Show.
Or Jim J. Bullock, who was in my movie, One Too Many. It's available. Check it out. Boom.
Yeah, like a normal person would say.
Like a normal person, right? But no, just another victory. I sold it. I sold the movie. No. Everybody sells their movie, stupid.
Yeah, or I hung out with Jim J. Bullock. He likes cock.
Yeah, whatever. A lot of people have
anecdote. That. Yeah, for sure.
A lot of people have that.
The other thing that John does is he constantly works in his material into these conversations, which is so pathetic. But you'd think that if you worked your material in, that it would be polished and funny. You know, if you're able to do that sort of thing.
He's the only guy I've ever seen who takes a shitty story, adds his bits, and makes it even shittier.
Yep, and makes it worse. And this guy Peter is working so hard on this.
And don't forget, I also left Howard to be the announcer
for the Jay Leno show.
Yes, on the Tonight Show. So they actually hired a stutterer to be their announcer. That's like entrusting Charlie Sheen with your Coke.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's not, though. It's not anything like trusting Charlie Sheen with your Coke.
Fun side note here. He never touched him again after he put his hand on his back. It must have been sopping wet. Yeah. And he was like, won't make that mistake again.
Yeah. So I find it fascinating that John has this joke, and he tells it all the time. We've heard it before. I'm not playing anything you guys haven't heard before, but it's just like this comparison of Charlie Sheen around Coke to him being a stutterer and being an announcer. It makes no sense. It's not funny, but he constantly says it over and over again. If you and I said something off the cuff today, and then we think about it, we're like, well, that didn't really make any sense. It happens. You can say some stupid shit.
Happens a lot to me.
Sure,
yeah,
of course. But for this guy to be doing this is in his act. He says it on every show that he goes on. And I hope I get a chance to talk to John again. Because that's one of the first questions I'm going to ask is like, why do you think that makes sense? Why do you think that's funny?
Yeah. Having a round table with him and Tom Myers to discuss comedy that's like right up there when it was like Gervais, Seinfeld, Louis, and Chris Rock hanging out, talking shop.
It'd be amazing. Well, John loves the stage, as we know. We can't.
And the stage loves him right back, Karl.
We can't keep him off the stage, and he explains that.
I love being on stage, dude. I've been on stage since I was in the star of my first grade play, The Little Carrot Scene. So I mean, I've always been a ham. And you know what the funniest thing is? What's your name again?
My name is Peter Blake. I'm the Rolex reporter. How you doing?
Now, what Peter doesn't understand is that John was actually bragging. He's like, I started my first grade play. Now, we know that because we've heard all of this stuff. And John's not saying that as just like, I've been doing this forever kind of thing. He's literally bragging about his career. He brings up elementary school a few times in this interview. And of course, John's unprepared. He doesn't know the host's name. He turns that into a running gag where he uses different names that will go nowhere.
Right.
This is the start of the first finger on his temple, which I think this is the turning point for good old Mr. Rolex getting agitated at John for really just being oblivious to what's going on.
I don't know if John's doing this on purpose, but if his goal is to be so boring that he never says anything interesting ever again whenever he's a guest on a show, just so that we don't have anything to talk about, he's nailing it.
Yeah, if you're going to tell elementary school stories, it better be after the host just read an elementary school news story. Something that would tie in.
Yeah,
with,
when I was in school. Yeah, right.
Right.
Something would make a little bit more sense. Instead, he just goes right to that. And then another thing coming out of John's act, and he always works into the conversation.
Asking OJ if he would sign my knife wasn't exactly.
Well, listen.
And coincidentally, he already had his own.
You and Dennis Miller.
See, that's another one. I want to ask him why he thinks that's funny. OJ already had his own.
I've never.
But what does that have
heard
to do
of-
with signing your knife?
I've never heard of a celebrity whose bio goes back to elementary school. Whose credits go back. The Young Carrot Seedling, starring John Melendez.
When the very first time I did a review of John's podcast back in 2018, I think it was 2018, I couldn't believe it. He was talking about how in second grade he was playing trumpet in the all-county orchestra. I mean, he went through so many different things, and I was like, what is this guy talking about? Why is he bragging about these things that are inconsequential when you're in show business? No one would go back that far.
He's giving you the stats of a trumpet prodigy, of a child, no one has ever seen before playing trumpet. In second grade, I was all county. Get the fuck out of here.
All right, this next part has so much projection going on, and John's oblivious. He has no idea what he's actually saying here.
Putting him down, and what's so funny about this, Eddie, is that is that people like these comedians can never take themselves. They always take themselves too seriously.
Right.
It's really odd because sports people usually have a sense of humor. Actors usually do, but comedians never do, except for the late great Joan Rivers.
Yeah, we know where that's going. Jesus Christ. This is incredible to me. He's like, these comedians, they take themselves too seriously. John, the reason why you had to leave the Dabbleverse is because you took yourself too seriously and created this entire world because of that. The fact that he can have some balls to go out there and be like, these comedians, Jesus Christ, get a sense of humor, guys.
These guys take things so seriously. So they call my mom at night.
Right.
Yeah.
Some of the most pinnacle times in the Dabbleverse have been him being too thin-skinned. It started with Chrissy Mayer. It started with Artie. It was even with that guy, the gravestone guy, when he called him a whack packer.
And Cumia with the parking, plenty of parking up front. Joe.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, just little jabs that John could not handle and had to lash out. Also, the fact that he says actors and athletes don't take themselves too seriously. Has he seen the Academy Awards? He talks about it. People take themselves very fucking seriously. It's ridiculous.
I was at the Isotopes concert on Sunday. Man, plenty of parking.
What the fuck?
Yeah.
There was a lot of other things happening in Rochester. We were competing with a lot of.
Well, the rain and all that. It's a crazy day.
So you just heard him call Peter Eddie.
Yes.
And the first 3 times he used a different name for him, he laughed. And this time it's just like, okay, it's going flat now. You can't just keep harping on it. So John is now, he's not sure if he realizes that he's joking or not.
But and I listen. I've led a charmed life.
Right.
I mean, and I know it's Peter Blake, though.
I know. I got you. Stuttering John Melendez
I'm
here
only
of
kidding.
the Howard Stern Show.
Just to let you know, I not only am I a comedic dancer, I'm a comedic interviewer as well.
I just thought that was so funny because John thought he was just going to get a laugh every time he used a different name.
Right.
And finally the guy's like, yeah, no, we get it. And he's like,
Yeah.
By the way, I don't want you to think I'm stupid.
John's like hosting Candid Camera, but the camera's not hidden. It's been on a guy's shoulder the whole, and he goes, "There's a camera right there. I just want to let you know."
Yeah.
And they're like, "Yeah, we can see it, dude. We can see it."
Well, did you? I hope Karl put the Dick Clark thing in here. I don't know if you put that one in, but
I
that
didn't
was
get that far.
Oh, the Ryan Seacrest rant that he had.
Well, it was but the people that he thought were dicks at the Tonight Show, and he brings up Dick Clark joke. That
I heard you guys talking about that last night. Yeah, it was just
Dude.
like with a focus on Dick. He's like, yeah.
Yeah, but that whole Ryan Seacrest, every Tonight Show story about who was a dick involved him roaming the halls and trying to talk to these people and them focusing on their appearance and not knowing who the fuck he is and not giving a shit.
Right.
Either one.
Well, okay, we are going to get into some trashing that John does, especially of Howard Stern. That's one of John's favorite things to do. But there's an interesting question that Peter has about stand-up in 2025. Like, do you have to adjust your act? Are there things that you really can't talk about anymore because they've become taboo, or just societal norms have changed? And John addresses that.
I've taken out at least 20 minutes of my set,
Right,
because of what this has become. But I'll tell you something funny, Peter.
Sure, tell me.
This is like my fourth grade school teacher must have been clairvoyant.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this was crazy. So John said he's taking 20% out of his act, which
20 minutes
or 20
minutes.
So I know he took out the stuff about his trans son. I know he doesn't still say Bruce Jenner is on a box of Fruit Loops.
Right.
Is there more to it
The
than
rest,
that?
yeah, the rest are all N-word jokes from what I remember.
But Shuli, Zen, you guys might know this better than I do. When you're adjusting your set and you're like, well, this isn't working anymore, this is dated, or audiences don't react to this, don't you like add in an additional 20 minutes? Like you take 20 minutes out, you put 20 new minutes in at some point, or?
Yeah,
Right.
I mean, it's like Raiders of the Lost Ark. You didn't just take the idol and didn't put a bag of sand there. Even though it didn't
Correct.
work, there was a switch that happened in case it did work. Yeah.
Well, usually after 15 years, you tend to write another hour of material or a couple of new jokes.
Yeah, stumble upon something by mistake or something.
Yeah. Or he's like advertising his shows, like, guys, like 20 minutes lighter, these shows. Okay.
Right.
You know, he gets 20-minute headlines.
He's headlining. He's doing 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And I would love to know if that's true, which I doubt it is. I would love to know what he took out. Like if we could ever see the list of what he thinks is, because he's such a moron. I mean, take him out because they suck. Don't take him out because they're offensive. Write offensive, funny jokes.
Right.
People
Well,
do it
maybe-
all the time.
Maybe he's talking about the 15-minute videotape he used to play.
Oh, there
Before
you go.
he goes
Yeah,
on.
so you got to take that out because
Right.
he doesn't have the rights
That's
to it.
never leaving.
So it's bizarre that he's talking about having to adjust things for stand-up, because John's the one who brought up that he's doing stand-up and he's loving
Right.
it. And so I thought that he wanted to talk about that. So this guy goes, okay, well, what's it like being a stand-up? What do you have to do? And then John, for some reason, pivots that directly to his fourth grade teacher.
Yep.
John likes to ask penetrating questions and stutters when he's excited, how she wrote that on his report card. And then they get right into a whole different conversation. Like, why did he segue that?
And I firmly believe that teacher wrote those comments because it was a problem, and he's turned it into a compliment.
Of course.
You know?
Yeah, she wasn't complimenting him, right?
Right. Your kid won't shut the fuck up, and he's asking stupid fucking questions. Personal
then-
questions, you know?
So then we get into some of the people on the Tonight Show, some of the guests that he has a problem with. Again, these are not questions that are being asked. This is just John volunteering this information.
But I will tell you, when Sacha Baron Cohen did the Tonight Show, I thought it was odd that he didn't come and just say, "Hey man, thanks," because I was before him. I was before Bob Smigel and Triumph the Insult Dog, who's essentially Stuttering John with a puppet, you know, and Between Two Ferns. I mean, I was doing that stuff way before these guys.
Yeah,
And, you know, it's just, you know, but hey, I guess imitation is the best form of flattery.
that's it.
So the amount of delusion to A, think any of that is true, and then B, say it out loud. It's not even part of the conversation. That's on his checklist. He's got this weird checklist of things that he has to say whenever he has appearances. And this is one of them, that he invented Triumph and Sacha Baron Cohen. Sacha Baron Cohen is British, if I'm not
Yes.
mistaken.
Yes.
He didn't grow up on Howard Stern. It has nothing to do, what he does has nothing to do with John.
Right.
Zach Galifianakis has nothing to do with the Howard Stern show. It's completely different.
I'll be honest, I'm a little upset with Dan Soder because he's never come up to me and said thank you for when he's doing stand-up comedy, because I was doing it a little bit before him.
Right.
By the way, that is fucked up.
Yeah.
That's pretty fucked up.
If anyone knows Dan, they can get that info to him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of owes Zen an apology.
But
Please.
the
Thank you.
level of delusion to think Sacha Baron Cohen should even say hello to you
Right.
is crazy. But then on top of that, to say the guy never thanked me.
You'd think he'd at least come by and thank me. No, I wouldn't think that at all. It doesn't make any sense.
Right. Well, here's another thing that we brought up on the show when we covered this was that, you know, he did a lot of stuff on radio. A lot of people probably didn't know who he was or recognized him. Maybe they knew
Right.
the name Stuttering John, but when they see him, And they don't make that connection that this is a guy like Stuttering John, but why would they even give a shit? Again, it's like, who gives a shit that this is Stuttering John Melendez? Like, he can't put that together. Like, one, they should already know who I am. I'm that big. I'm that famous that these guys should know.
Also, it's well documented. And this is something that's been coming out more recently that I didn't even realize, that John wasn't even the first intern on the Howard Stern show to ask celebrities crazy questions.
Nope.
Yeah. Yeah.
He
like
wasn't even the
people.
He's acting like he invented this thing. He didn't invent it, and he didn't write any of the jokes, and he wasn't even the first.
Well, here's a better question for you. If John never arrived, never came to the Stern show, would they have never done celebrity questions on the red carpet?
No, of course they were already doing it.
Exactly. Exactly. So his whole argument is, it's just an insane person in a warehouse telling you that Sacha Baron Cohen should have said thank you to him.
So then Peter asks him, what was it like to work for Howard Stern? Now, I don't think that Peter is asking for a list of grievances.
No,
I have
he's
a feeling
not Jay.
just the opposite.
But Howard's not Jay, so he ain't going to get any compliments. That's for sure.
It's so weird how John's brain works. It's just like, he's always focused on the negative. I don't think he even recognizes this in himself. It's just so natural for him to just start bitching about Howard.
But his greatest flaw is he gets extremely, what's the word I'm looking for? That, you know, where you own something, you know, like you think you
accountable.
No, you think you own everybody. Like,
Right.
Just because you give
No, I don't know that word.
He gives me my start, but it never in his mind, you know, says like it gets to where it's equal. In other words, Lorne Michaels gives Adam Sandler the chance to be on SNL.
Sure.
But Adam Sandler runs away with it, right? And at some point, doesn't it even out? Like they're both helping each other?
You would think so.
In this analogy, John is Adam Sandler. Am I correct? Is that what he's saying right here?
Not only that, but John is should be and is on the same level as Howard Stern.
Right. Yes, because people
They're
tune into
peers.
Howard Stern to hear Stuttering John's segment.
And, you know, Lorne Michaels fucked up and let Sandler in the building. Sandler went nuts once he got in there and just did whatever he wanted. Lorne had no idea what was coming out of Adam Sandler.
Yeah, he didn't go on to produce all of his movies and work with him on that.
Right. He ran with it. No, he worked. It's called work, motherfucker.
And John, and this was pointed out by Mersch when he was watching One Too Many, John really thinks he is Adam Sandler. You know, in that movie, he's the quirky guy who gets the hot girl, and he's also a musician. He's playing the guitar, and, you know, he's pulling out all the stops. Just like, that's not natural. That's why I got such negative reviews. Everyone watched that and went, well, this doesn't make any sense.
Well, there's some people that think the whole Susanna banged Adam Sandler thing is bullshit just because he so wants to be Adam Sandler.
Oh, that's interesting.
And wants to get his attention and wants to, you know.
That's an interesting theory. I hadn't heard that.
Yeah.
Well, he's right in the fact that Lorne Michaels and Howard Stern gave both those guys an opportunity to shine. But what he doesn't specify is that Adam Sandler was way more successful after he left SNL because he did it himself. He didn't have Lorne Michaels making him the superstar and highest paid actor that he was at one point, or the Netflix deals, or anything that Adam Sandler is known for in the last 10 years. You know, he's not, you know, it's not Lorne Michaels presents Adam Sandler. It's Adam Sandler is Adam Sandler. But this guy's he forever has to keep Stuttering John in front of his moniker, even though he said he's not Stuttering John anymore. Now he's John Melendez. But apparently a lot of these expos didn't get the memo that he's not Stuttering John Melendez anymore. Yeah.
And we can obviously point out dissimilarities all day, but another thing that is pretty obvious here, Adam Sandler honed an act, had talent, went and auditioned, won the job versus probably 200 other comedians who wanted that role. John was hired as an unpaid intern because he stuttered.
Right.
It's a pretty big difference in how these two guys both ended up in their respective roles.
I said this the other night when we were watching it. There are people that you know, at one point he was Adam Sandler from SNL.
Yep.
And now He's the guy who started at SNL. He is Adam Sandler. He is he's bigger than SNL.
Oh yeah.
Right.
You know? And he doesn't it's just why not me? Just complaining and the victim every fucking time.
Oh my gosh. So he's sitting next to Michael Papa John, who was in Waterboy. Do you think he's telling that story about Susanna?
Oh,
immediately?
without
That's
a doubt.
First thing out of his mouth, right?
And I'm sure Papa John ain't got great things to say about Sandler if he's doing these conventions now. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a good point.
His phone ain't ringing, so fucking. I'm sure they were commiserating over there.
All right, so John's continuing to blast Howard Stern, and this just cracks me up. I love that John still feels this way.
When Howard was the judge on America's Got Talent, they had a stuttering comic on. And when they went to the judges to get their feedback, Howard said to the stuttering comic, let me just say something.
Right.
You, my friend, are an inspiration. And I'm sitting there, and my kid told me, and Artie, too, was like, he's an inspiration. You're a stutterer who worked with Howard for 15 years. You became the freaking announcer on the biggest late night talk show, and you're not an inspiration? And it's really and it really is shocking.
Right.
And that's his greatest flaw besides being a cheap son of a bitch.
He just can't help himself. Now, the fact that Howard did that, I was watching AGT at that time. I remember this happening. I am glad that this still bothers John to this day.
Yeah.
That's one of the greatest things Howard's ever done because it's still bothering John. But the reason why Howard was inspired, now, of course, it's TV Howard, so not real Howard.
Of course.
The reason why TV Howard's inspired by this because that guy was actually funny. He put together
hilarious.
An act. He was good.
Yeah.
John got a spite hire to be on a TV show and failed miserably and lost the job very quickly.
Also, Robin's better half dumped water on him because he's farting at a dinner table.
Yep.
He's getting a ticket for pissing in public. What kind of inspiration are you for stutterers? What kind of role model are you?
Yeah,
Tells
but
people
like
drinking curbs his stuttering, cures his stuttering. Yeah, what a fucking role model. What an inspiration.
But he's also, his mentality is like, why isn't Howard praising me on America's Got Talent? Why isn't he bringing me up to this stuttering comedian?
Because it's
on this guy's,
over.
well, it's because it's like this is this guy's big moment on national television. This is making this guy's career something bigger than what it could be. And Howard Stern has to go, next to Stuttering John Melendez, you are an inspiration to stutterers everywhere.
You're up there with another guy.
It's like going to a grocery store you used to work at, you used to bag groceries at, and you see somebody bagging and the manager says, good job. And he goes, how come nobody ever said good job to me when I was bagging groceries?
Right.
You go, what the fuck is wrong with this grown adult?
So you just heard John transition this into how cheap Howard is. So he's got to go down the list of all the grievances he has about Howard.
Like for Christmas one year from Howard, we all got popcorn canisters.
Oh, here we go again. I mean, I can't hear that story. I can't hear that story ever again. For fuck's sake, John, get over it.
And you would think, he's told it so many times, you'd think he would know to learn how to tell it better, but he's telling the story. He goes, and Ganji, same thing. Nobody knows who Ganji is. Right. Nobody. Set it up. Explain who these people are if you're going to be stuck in this loop of 30 years ago. Set it up. Pronouns,
one more clip on here because so then he has to talk about how great Leno is. Leno gave him $5,000. Howard gave him popcorn. That makes one guy better than the other guy.
You won't find anybody who worked for Jay Leno trashing him. Yet if you look at all the people that work for Stern, there's a long line of people that take exception to the way he was handling his employees.
There's a low.
I mean, he's at the front of the line. He may be the only one. He may be the only one.
He definitely is at this point because Jackie's not doing it. Artie had a little issue for a little while and then cooled off.
Artie was also whacked out of his mind on drugs,
Artie had some issues going on, correct. But yeah, I love that he acts like this is what everyone does. Everyone goes out and trashes Howard Stern. It's just like, that's not the case, man. I don't know. I like I said, I just had Jim Florentine on the show. He was a big part of the Howard Stern show for a while there. And
not to mention, I know people that left there on not so great terms and left, in an ugly way on both sides.
Bob
you know?
Levy. Yeah,
No,
yeah.
not Bob. No, Scott Salem. But even he's not doing a show trashing Howard. You know, he makes the mistake of telling John shit, and then John goes on his show and repeats it. But there's people up there that can have gripes, and I know they have gripes, and they're not following through on it.
No, because in most people's worlds, trashing former employers gets you
Right.
nowhere. All
Right.
it does is it shows future employers that you're not someone that they want to work with.
Hey, thanks for watching that clip. We got a bunch more stuff from a bunch of different other shows. So if you want to support us, you want to be a part of what's happening here, subscribe, notify, and get yourself a membership. 2 levels, $5, $10. We got more bonus shows than we know what to do with. So help us out. Get in here.